Let's go! Although usually with these there's a few, 3 to 5 minutes worth of fluff of me just talking whilst I'm waiting for the guest to come on, we always try to offer a lot of value for you. So if you've got any questions from Sherist or from different industry leaders and you'd love to know more about what they do, then yeah, by all means, let us know and we can certainly find those industry leaders for you. So Sherist, thanks for joining us.
I don't know why my phone wouldn't connect.
No, that's okay. Well, yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show. So as usual, as we were talking about before, I usually just talk a little bit of smack for 5 minutes whilst the guests figure it out. So yeah, thank you for tuning in with us. How's your holidays been?
It's been great. I'm here in the Philippines, actually. So we had a wonderful holiday. Part of what our company does, what they call the CSR, company outreach. So we spent it at an orphanage and also
lovely.
did some outreach in the Philippines. So it was wonderful. Very
blessed. That'd be really rewarding. Oh, well, that's lovely. Yeah. So yeah, I was saying before with the whole me talking smack for a few minutes to waste time. I went to visit my mom. So yeah, I've just come off about 4 hours of travel, had a quick shower. So thank you so much for jumping in with me.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah. So yeah, everyone. So Sherist Rodriguez. So yeah, she has a company that she started herself, and basically she was originally actually in was it medical billing, Sherist?
Yeah, I had a medical billing company. I come from a hospital healthcare background, and at some point I didn't want to be anymore, and decided to start my own billing company. And I was a bit of a hustler back then.
Great.
So I hustled.
Aren't we all?
I said, come on, let me try your billing out. And it worked. And so I built a company doing that.
Wow.
Which we did well, yes.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I mean, because it's always, we always come from, such different backgrounds and the fact that you went from one avenue and you just completely pivoted to something completely different. Like it's fantastic about how far you've come. And I'd love to hear more about, that start story. So, and Angel's just jumped in as well.
Oh, yeah. Good.
So,
great.
So is Angel your son? Is that right?
Yeah, he is. And
awesome.
Just excited to join and start learning about the business. And so I brought him over to the Philippines with me. And so he's been trying to do some sales. And I'm trying to be more of a mentor, more so now, as not just as a parent, but also as a, for the community, because, we all... In our careers, we will make a ton of mistakes, and we will learn a great things. It's time to share all that with everyone too.
Yeah, that's it. It's all about failing forward and basically just learning as much as we can through struggles or through other people and what they've done and then teaching that. So that's awesome. Being a mentor or even having a mentor is so important to be able to, I guess, just speed up the learning curve and get to where you want to be in a much quicker time frame. And that's why I'm such a big fan of VAs. Everyone in the group, because basically I've been filming a course on how to leverage your time using a virtual assistant. So I'm a big fan of VAs. So yeah, everyone, yeah, so everyone knows I'm an advocate for them, and the fact that you can utilize them to really do exactly that and leverage time so you can focus on business development and get the lesser tasks or set up systems so then you can continue on in other aspects of business is such a fantastic thing to do. So it's I think what you're doing is awesome, and it's going to help a lot of businesses in regards to being able to move forward faster, just because they don't have to focus on certain aspects of their business, which is great.
Right. And I'm actually writing an ebook right now on that too.
Awesome.
And I'm funny that you monitor a program, but because there's so many, there's so many things that people don't know, or even there's a big perception too that I'm too small, or I'm a one-man shop, so I shouldn't use a VA, or but it really isn't the case. Those are the people who need it the most.
Absolutely.
In growing small businesses, we don't feel like we can compete with the big guys, but we have the same opportunities if we leverage the VAs, and especially offshore, where it's a lot more cost efficient and they're used to the services.
Well, that's it. I mean, even when I used to work full time, I would have part-time VAs. And so this was whilst having full 9 to 5 work, I would then utilize them as a, solopreneur, trying to get, side hustles going. So they're great even for just small business, because when you're bigger business, I mean, that's great. And they're really helpful for that as well. But for all levels of business, you can find a use for them. And especially if you're just starting out, getting those mundane tasks done, like the, email filtering and calendars and that sort of thing, then there's some fantastic use of their time, and it doesn't cost you much at all. So you can really use some of your, say, hourly wage or weekly wage, if you are still working full time, to employ someone to help you get to that point quicker, where you then leave the 9 to 5 so you can start your own business and do that. So, we're all big advocates here. We've actually got a few VAs that have jumped on live and said hello as well. So yeah, hello from the Philippines.
Keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So how did you really just get into starting your own company? Like that's amazing. Like, it's such a fantastic thing to do, and such a big achievement as well. And not even to the point now we've got the 70 staff, but even just taking that initial step to open up your own doors is such a commendable thing. So I'd love to hear about how that all came about.
Yeah, well, it's funny because a lot of times we don't like to talk about our past or what leads us to where we are right now. So it's something that's
the best part.
Parts of our lives. So it's something I'm learning to be a lot more comfortable with and share that part. But I did grow up in a very, very poor home environment, very non-educated, if you will.
Fair enough.
My father was an abusive alcoholic, and so there wasn't really any. It was never like stay in school or have a business. It was, one of these days you're going to get a job, and that's the best you'll be in life. And this background, like, no, that can't just be the end. That can't be the only thing I'm supposed to do in life is just have a job. And unfortunately, when I was 15, my father was shot and killed in self-defense.
I'm so sorry to hear that. Yeah.
We don't really talk about it. But that really pushed me to have to become independent and have to take care of myself. Killed my mother, and it hurt the family.
It would absolutely, yeah.
So I had to drop out of school, and so that was a big thing for me because I was going to be the first one to go to college and be a college graduate. So in my mind, I kept saying, one of these days I'm going to start a business. I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to hustle. I'm going to get these jobs that forget about that college degree. And so it came to that point, as high as I could get without a degree, which is pretty good. And that's when I decided, it's time to jump in. I was a single mom with 2 kids, and I said, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. And if I don't start setting the goals today, and instead of talking about all these things I want to do, if I don't do it, then what am I teaching them? And then I'm not fulfilling what I want to do. So I decided to do it, and I started out of my house, and I have a friend who was doing billing, and so she came and helped me. And I figured it was something easy. I'm in the healthcare industry. I can learn it super easy. So I did, for about 8 years before healthcare started to take a turn. And so the reimbursement rates were going down, and I thought, I got to get ahead of the curve. I've always been behind the curve. I never reacted quick enough. And so that's when I decided I need to utilize what other big companies are doing, and they're hiring offshore. But I didn't know a lot about it. So I started off with putting ads in Craigslist and just interviewing people. I love Craigslist. It's a good old Craigslist in the Philippines. They really did have the best bang for the dollar, the communication skills. For all of you who maybe haven't hired a VA before, it's really important to be able to communicate well. The higher the success is really dependent on how well you can communicate with your VA.
Absolutely. 100%.
And a lot of times I'll say it's usually our fault too that the communication is messed up, because we assume that they understand everything that we're telling them. We've given them the right directions, when all in all, we're entrepreneurs just throwing things at them, and they don't really grasp everything we're telling them to do.
Well, that's it. I mean, when we do things, it's basically it's just we know what we know. So when we say to someone, do this, it's kind of almost unintentional assumed knowledge that it's a case of, well, they're going to just know it. Whereas, it's really about, auditing yourself to think, well, all right, a conversation's a two-way street, and they don't have the same upbringing we do, and they don't have the same education, and the English isn't even their, in the Philippines, sure, in some cases it is the first language, but if you're using, say, a third world VA, then it may not be English as the first language. So it really is our fault if there's a bit of a communication barrier.
And biggest mistakes is just, throwing a project at one of them and assuming that they know all, from A to Z, as opposed to mapping out A, 8.1, 8.2, B, whatever, all it is. That's definitely, that was a big learning curve for me. But I had started off with a couple, and it ended up working out really well, that I ended up having 20 VAs spread out amongst things. Now, this is the funny thing, because when I first started, it was kind of a whim. I'm just going to do it. I came to the Philippines to interview, to train them all at one point. They've been working with me for a year. And
yeah, that's a good turnaround for an hour.
I worked the night shift and over here in the Philippines, so I've been up quite a lot of hours right now.
Yeah. Don't worry, you and me both. So we're both on the same level.
Deprived. I realized everybody was spread out throughout all over the Philippines, and that made a difference too. Depending on the province or the area of the Philippines, their knowledge or even the cultural stuff. So that was a big learning curve for me as well.
Yeah.
But after about 7 years, I had home-based workers. Part of my problem is that it became, back then there were less software opportunities where you can actually monitor screen by screen and be able to really, a team of 20, they were getting away with a lot. So that's the other thing is part of also having a virtual assistant, you've got to know how much time projects should take. And they have to know that you know that, because if not, they do take advantage. And
all the time.
You are on, don't take advantage.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love it. It's when I was first learning the whole VA scene, a lot of the time that they would say, and having been in the Philippines, I do understand that the internet can be really bad over there. But a big one was, it'll slow down our internet, so let's not use the screen sharing software. And I was like, well, over time, all right, let's not use it, but I do know how long each task takes. So if it's not done, I know you're not doing it.
You have to be on top of some of them. You can find now if you're hiring a highly qualified, a skilled versus like a data entry.
Oh, of course. Yeah, of course.
I never have problems with those type of VAs, like my web developers, software developers. Those are usually on target with everything, or delivering what I need them to deliver.
Nice.
So about 3 years ago, I opened up finally an office where I brought all the VAs into an office setting. And boy, did it change dramatically. It changed the game, because now I had complete control, complete leverage. They were all housed under one roof. I could do team bonding, team meetings, team training. Had people, I was in the U.S., but still monitoring with cameras, and but it was a game changer also. So at some point, those virtual assistants that work from home, at some point you might want to consider putting them in or having them housed. There's a lot of like workspace places and stuff like that, because I do see that they're much more productive, especially if you expand and have any more than 5 or 6 of them. At times you want to have a team lead, at least with 10 people, you want to have a team lead. And that's where mine got a little crazy, and no leads. So and they were all over the place. So.
Yeah, that's it. It's really having either say a project manager or team leader there. It's really helpful in just monitoring it all, because even if it's an in-house team, like the culture itself dramatically improves, which is awesome. But if you're not there to physically stand by them, they can still get away with just a lot. So yeah, it's really important to be able to employ someone, even if it is just to oversee what they're doing. And sometimes as well, if you're employing someone that is, say, overseeing everyone else, the fact it's managerial, but to a level, there's a certain administration role there. So sometimes the web devs, for instance, are getting paid more than them. So it's all about finding balance.
And it depends too. Sometimes you don't need that if you're doing things project-based or hourly based. Like I need you to do these 100 web searches or something and get me we that will hire VAs just to look up local businesses and find out who the CEO is and enter all the database in their database so that they can go out there and do the sales. Or you have other ones where they'll give you, a list of hundreds of thousands of leads to call on, and you can time all that by the amount of calls. And there's a lot of software now too, especially even with the voice over IPs like Ring Central, for instance. You can monitor calls. You could actually reception area and and even barred into calls too. So there's a lot of good tools out nowadays to help
Nice.
people succeed.
Yeah, that's it. And it makes your job easier, and you can just leverage those just to be able to make everything run a lot smoother. So it's, you know, the way technology is going, it's great. Like, it's so much easier now than it used to be, and no doubt in another few years it'll be even better.
Oh, I know. I can't wait.
Yeah, yeah, can't wait. Yeah, no, that's really cool. So from there, so you had the team, and you were still based in the US, and you had, you know, a team lead to look after things. What made you, or how did you know it was time to then take that next step to really go to the next level in your business?
You know, it's all about growth too. So when you get to that stage, now, you know, we talk about using VAs to start a business and to grow, but then when you really need to scale, this is where it's important that you're that you're in the center with them, that they are seeing your vision and they are feeling it, and that you're there to motivate your managers and your leads. And, you know, as you're growing, it's not just about giving tasks now, it's about really painting the vision and getting the team to collaborate as one. So there was, you know, I was having a difficulty with different growing pains at one point where I had 70 people, you know, well, probably about the 50 point is where it started to get really, you know, crazy. I had to hire an HR person.
Okay, yeah.
And I had that person, and, you know, there were so many, and I had to go flow into a second shift because we were starting to service people like in UK and different areas. So it
Yeah,
just
kind of
started
full 24-hour circle.
Yeah. So I was out here probably 4 months out of the year during one period, and then it just didn't feel like it was, you know, especially when I decided I wanted now to share, right? I had done this for my own business. I reached a burnout with my own business. I've been in healthcare since I was 8 years old, and I just reached a burnout, and I got tired of constantly, like, instead of being able to be the person growing and thinking of the ideas and being the entrepreneur, I was the one having to micromanage every single thing that was happening. So I reached a point where I says, how do I leverage what I know to help now, right? And I don't even care if I have that many clients, but it's about now I want to have some fun. I want to, you know, I built an orphanage while I was out here in the Philippines. So there was like a whole bunch of in my life. So, so I decided to move out here, and I've been here now a year. It's pretty crazy. I never thought I'd live in the Philippines, but it's interesting though, because I really learned the culture now. And so not only learning the culture, but being able to train them and really, part of, I think, the biggest benefit, not just, you don't have to move out to the Philippines to have that benefit, but it's really understanding the culture of the VAs you're working with too. Because a lot of times, a lot of things that they would say is, "Oh, we don't feel appreciated. All the, you know, Americans just give us work," or the Australians or whatever, but feel appreciated until you actually kind of understand the culture a little bit, which you can do without being out here. So that was a game changer. But no, being here was, and now the really nice thing is a lot of our clients are so happy that I'm out here because they actually have a foreigner here in the Philippines running the show. We actually have, you know, my son is here from the US, and I have a lady from Peru because we have a small offshoot in Peru also right now that deals with Spanish speaking.
That's cool. That's exciting.
Yeah. So it just, you know, it was, the time was right, and it was a little chaotic. And I said, I'm going to go. And this is my dream, to build this offshore type of atmosphere where I get to surround myself with a bunch of entrepreneurs versus surrounding myself with doctors all day long. Sorry for any doctors that are hearing this.
There probably aren't any in this group. This is business owners and entrepreneurs. Talk smack all you want. No, but for the doctors listening, we do appreciate what you do. Yeah, well, that's cool. Well, coming back to that point in regards to you saying, from a cultural perspective, your VAs, or, you know, in typically some feel that they're not appreciated. How would you recommend, Sherist, those that do have VAs, or they're looking to get into VAs and they're in that stage, they want to learn as much as possible, or they've got a few and their turnover rate is quite high? How would you recommend for you to be able to appreciate, or at least make it seemingly that you appreciate your staff more so from your expertise?
Yeah, I could talk about this for days, so I don't know. No, seriously. You know, I think one of the biggest things is what we talked about a little while ago, is also the misinterpretation of the misunderstandings. To have the best success is to have everything prepared ahead of time. To really think about also what culture your VA is in and how they learn best. Don't just assume that the way we put our materials together is the way they're going to learn. Don't assume that verbal instructions are okay, because even in our prospective countries, some people learn by reading, some people learn by hands-on, some people learn by many different mechanisms, right? So with the Philippines, I realized I really had to come up with some really great cheat sheets and some really good guides and some, like literally we have 3 things we do for them. One is a visual flow chart. So every process gets a visual one. Second one is what I call a QRG, a quick reference guide. So it's kind of like a step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4. So that when they feel overwhelmed or they're getting something from us that we don't think is that difficult, they can go back to their A, B, C, D and go, oh yeah, I don't want to forget to do D, Great. And then the other is, so I do that with every process we bring on, with every client, with everything I decide to do. I drive my managers crazy, but I think they can appreciate it. And I think Angel, now being here, really appreciates it, that it helps them. So to be honest, especially if you're using the Philippines, that little bit right there, they feel like you're helping them get off to a successful start. So they go in it already motivated. So when you don't do that, then they feel already trapped, or that we're just the dictators telling them to do things and do things. The other point would be to make sure the communication. So a lot of our lingo from different countries, they don't get it. I'll give you the funniest example. The first time I came out to the Philippines 8 years ago, we were sitting around and I was getting everybody together, and I told everybody, okay, everybody grab a chair, let's all sit and talk. And they literally all just stood there and grabbed their chair. And I'm like, no, like we're gonna. But then I realized, oh my God, that's what's been happening all this time. I'm using these terms but in the Philippines, it's very literal, the translation. So grabbing a chair means, okay, and they're looking at me like I'm the one that was nuts. So the communication is important, and just to understand that. And to also, another thing is that I have found has been very successful is to have your VAs repeat back the task. Many times we're off to the next thing, but make sure they repeat it and that they tell you exactly what they understand and perceive their task to be. Because most of the time, a lot of times there's going to be something that was missed in between, especially if you don't have it written down for them. So that's been a huge success.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I'm a big fan of just using MS Paint and drawing arrows as well. I find that's a lifesaver in some cases.
Absolutely. The clearer you can give it to them, the better. So do you take the time up front? Just like anything. I mean, if you prepare for anything up front, you're going to be more successful. So the same thing with your VAs.
Yeah, exactly. So Amanda said that's a great idea, having them repeat back to make sure you're both on the same page. Yeah, absolutely. Now, Sherist, if you can remember, because just your third point, like the actual dot point itself, the internet cut out as you said it. So although we got the rest of it, what was just the one sentence dot point you had for the third one?
Oh, which one was that one?
We had the third. So yeah, I mean, it's not that important, but just in case anyone listening at home, it just cut out for that half a second there. But if you can't remember, no stress.
Okay, well, it'll come to me later.
Okay, all good. Yeah, so sorry everyone listening at home. But yeah, no, it's good. That's really helpful, and that really does help give people a bit of idea in regards to how to just get their staff appreciated, because turnover rates, especially if you're, say, doing not through a company, but through just you've got your own freelancers or whatever, the turnover rate is very, very high. So anything you can do to manage that, to decrease the work is awesome.